I am the Namer, guardian of the names of power. Before your world even existed, my people were an ancient race. Now they are gone, and only I remain, keeper of my people's history. Across the endless tracts of space have I traveled, to return to the planet of my birth, Zoidstar. Though my people perished long ago, and their cities were buried by the shifting sands, the machines remain. It is these that have brought me here to perform the last act of the Zoidarian race, the giving of the names of power. When my race was young and had an interest in the affairs of the galaxy, they built the machines, mighty engines of destruction which gave the power of life and death over the other creatures in the galaxy. The Zoidarians turned their gaze outward and laid waste to 1,000 star systems with their machines, their Zoids. But ruling a galaxy was not enough for the Zoidarians. It was not the conquests, but the battles they enjoyed. And though all intelligent life trembled in the shadow of the Zoids, my people battled on, machine against machine, Zoidarian against Zoidarian, in the further pursuit of glory. Zoidarian lives were needlessly sacrificed to the god of battle, and the race dwindled in numbers until the elders outlawed the Zoid duels. But they couldn't outlaw the Zoidarian love of combat. The Zoidarian pilots of the giant war machines were replaced by androids, and thus the heroic combat could continue without threat to Zoidarian life. Too late came the order. Too late to save a once mighty race from extinction, and now only I remain. Only I and the Zoids. And though my people created the Zoids, I have no power to control them. For the war machines have become the living embodiment of the Zoidarian thirst for combat, with lives and wills of their own. They exist only to fight, to ensure that their heroic combat lasts for all eternity. Now I stand on the sand-blasted surface of a world I used to call home, high on a rock, scanning the horizon for some sign of movement, knowing that out there, behind the sand clouds, lurk the deadliest war machines in the universe. It begins!
The next generation Zoid war machine, beetle-shaped battlefield, terrascopes clean, fortune red and silver steel on 6 legs. Saicurtis whelps helic infantry dregs. Psychopaths that fire on these beetle thighs, buzzing wings and laser fire amid the cries. Infantry run and hide as his advance, hovering Scarab foots and Curtis dance. Saicurtis, war machine, beetle flies over. Saicurtis, anti-infantry rover. Saicurtis, laser guns and bullets fly. Saicurtis, swoop and fire as infantry die. machine, beetle flies over. Saicurtis, anti-infantry rover. Saicurtis, laser guns and bullets fly. Saicurtis, open fire as infantry die. Saicurtis, war machine, beetle flies over. Saicurtis, anti-infantry rover. Saicurtis, laser guns and bullets fly. Saicurtis, open fire as infantry die. Zoidstar shudders after the war. The black Zoids slain while the lands are left raw. Blue and red Zoids diminished in the wake. The jet war looms on Zoidstar at daybreak. A jet war looms on Zoidstar at daybreak. Icy blue moon, they fall to the ground. Zoid eggs land with monster machines. Profound, I caught the Zoid eggs hatch and burst free. Among them is Scarab, one amongst the three. Scarab, beetle Zoid and crotch commando. Scarab, monster machine on 6 legs claws. I caught the Zoid eggs hatch and burst free. Among them is Scarab, one amongst the three. Scarab, beetle Zoid and crotch commando. Scarab, monster machine on 6 legs claws. Scarab, loyal to the Prince of the Dark. Scarab, his laser guns will find their mark. Along with Stick and Hellcat, they made 3. Scarab and his fellow commandos, the red and silver beetle serves the dark one. At Quark's command, they serve under the sun. With galactic conquest in sight, he flies. Scarab spreads steel beetle wings and he spies. Searching towards our lands, Quark's eyes and ears. Scarab runs, jumps and flies with whirring gears. Scarab, beetle Zoid of Quark's commandos. Scarab, monster machine on 6 legs claws. Albert Quark with Zoid eggs hatch and burst free. Among them is Scarab, one amongst the three. Scarab, beetle Zoid of Quark's commandos. Scarab, monster machine on 6 legs claws. Scarab, loyal to the Prince of the Dark. Scarab, his laser guns will find their mark. Searches and fights well. Scarab, protected by red and silver shell. Fire lasers against Zoids, red and blue. Scarab serves Quark, Prince of Darkness true. Scarab, beetle Zoid of Quark's commandos. Scarab, monster machine on 6 legs goes. Scarab, loyal to the Prince of the Dark. Scarab, his laser guns will find their mark. Scarab, beetle Zoid of Quark's commandos. Scarab, monster machine on 6 legs goes. Scarab, loyal to the Prince of the Dark. Scarab, his laser guns will find their mark.
It is the never-ending battle between red and blue Zoids. It has been waged for centuries. It rages still, with no end in sight.
I, the Namer, last of the Zoidarians, guardian guardian of the names of power, keeper of the legend of heroic combat, have spoken.